This week we are going to take a look at Roman history and Roman theater history. I sometimes refer to our approach in this class as the George Washington chop down the cherry tree version of history. By that I mean we are really just dealing in the broadest possible strokes. You can't possibly, or we can't possibly delve into theater history the way it would be fun to do, at least fun for me, in a class that needs to cover this much material these many years. Anyway, and I believe I mentioned this last week, the city of Rome, according to legend, was founded in 753 BC by the twin brothers Romulus and Remus. The reason I say according to legend is that, much like early Greek history, there is no true recorded history of these early Roman years until several hundred years after the start. But as far as we can tell, the early Roman type of government would have been closest to a monarchy, and we believe that between 753 and the start of the Roman Republic, which is 509 BC, that there were 7 kings who ruled. We do know that there was some sort of civil war fought, and out of that civil war, the Roman Republic was born. This is 509 BC. At this time, we are still talking about a very small area geographical influence, generally speaking, just around the city of Rome, the lower part of the Italian peninsula. Over the course of the next, half a millennia, so the next 300, 400, 500 years, the Roman Republic grows to have an amazing amount of geographical influence. They take over all kinds of areas around the Mediterranean, including all the areas that we would formerly have thought of as Greece. As near as we can tell, in these very early days, the only type of Roman theater was something that we would generally call variety acts. So they had acrobats and dancers and jugglers and animal acts and athletic feats. There may have been a type of sketch comedy that went on, but generally variety acts is how we label or what we call this type of entertainment. Somewhere by 240 BC, Rome has conquered territories within Greece, which puts them in contact with Greek theater. The Romans then assimilate this type of theater into their own culture. I generally refer to the Romans as the Borg from Star Trek. The Borg are known for saying, "Resistance is futile." Generally speaking, resisting the Romans was a rather futile act as well. The one thing the Romans did that most empires didn't do, most conquerors didn't do, is when Rome took over an area, they didn't completely wipe off the advances that area made. They assimilated them. So if there was an invention in some area that they conquered, that invention was then spread throughout the Roman Empire. Most previous conquerors leveled everywhere they went and didn't advance, didn't make those kinds of quick advancements that the Romans did. So the Romans assimilated theater, and for a while, and we generally think of it and mark it as 240 BC, where we know that Rome had contact with Greece, through 27 BC, which is where the Roman Republic becomes the Roman Empire. Those couple hundred years is when Roman drama had its heyday. Roman drama, however, never reached that of Greek drama, never reached that kind of level of importance. For the most part, the Roman dramatists simply adapted Greek comedies and made them popular, with, slight twists. So after 27 BC, generally speaking, drama has been virtually done away with, and what replaces that as a type of theater is again variety acts. However, variety acts that get more and more brutal and more visceral as time goes on, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more depth later on. Roman theater was also, just like Greek theater, associated with religious festivals. Unlike the Greeks, the Romans, a very large pantheon of gods. Every time they would conquer a new area, they tended to assimilate the spiritual beliefs or the religious beliefs of that area. They would give Roman names to these new gods. Most of the Roman gods were actually Greek gods as well, the big ones that we think of. And this is on page 71 in your book as well. In 240 BC, there seemed to be in the Roman calendar one religious festival, one day of that in the calendar year. 90 years later, there were about 25 of them, and by the time, a little before the fall of the Roman Empire, 100 years or so, 120 years, about half of the day were festival days, religious festival days. Therefore, theater could be done just about every day of the year. Again, and when we say theater, please keep in mind that by the end of the Roman Empire, what they were doing would not necessarily look like theater to us, but it was theater to them. So back to the reason why it changed from drama back to variety acts is that in the Greek world, because they were a democracy and didn't have necessarily strong individual leaders, it was okay to kind of poke fun at government and poke fun at society and make comments about society, make comments about the leaders. Although that did change in later Greek drama, the Romans, having a more centralized type of government, even in the Republic, they didn't like the idea of drama making fun of anything that was Roman. And I'm saying this in broad general terms, but because of that, most of the drama during those 220 years where drama was at its highest in the Roman culture, they picked comedies that were fluffy or light and did not necessarily lampoon anything that was specifically Roman. In 27 BC, when the emperor, so it goes from being a republic to an emperor with a single person in charge, in theory, but with a single person mostly in charge, that person would not have liked any lampooning of his type of government, any making fun of him in any way. So, although it would have been on the decline anyway, drama was virtually done away with, because who's going to take the chance of making fun of the government when that would lead to your death? And this is very true of governments today. The most totalitarian of governments have the least amount of freedom when it comes to artistic freedom. In the former communist Russia, there was virtually no freedom. And in China today, almost all theater has to be state-sponsored. This leads to it leads to propaganda. So anything the state will sponsor usually is something that puts the state in a good position. So it represents the state as something good.